So to start the James Duff install on the Ford Explorer, what I'm doing is beginning on the back of the truck, and the stock configuration, this has the 8.8 drum brake, and it is a spring under configuration. And what I'll be doing is taking the newer model disc brake 8.8, and I'm going to be going spring over with new perches on top of the axle. So far I have started stripping things off underneath here, getting this axle out. So far I've got the drive shaft out or off, sway bar disconnected, and I've got stuff like the brake line soaking, shocks soaking. I think next what I'll do is get the shocks off, and I'll just be cutting the U-bolts off, and then I'll disconnect the shackles at the rear. I'll just go ahead and disconnect the shackles back here to drop the leaf springs down. And once it's hanging in the back here, I'll just go ahead and cut the U-bolts, and we'll just pull the rear end right off, and then bolt the leaf springs right back up, and then get the new axle in place with the new spring perches and the new U-bolts, and just have everything loosely bolted together, nothing welded yet, until this thing is all sitting on the front suspension and we have all the drive angles set. So that's where we're at right now. Now the next thing I got off on the truck were the parking brake cables. And since we're going to the disc brake and this is a stick shift truck, I'm going to try to figure out something to try to keep the parking brake optional on this axle. So I did not destroy, cut, or break anything with the parking brake cables on this truck. So I kept all the springs, the clips, I kept all the original drum brake, parking brake cables intact, pulled everything off, nothing's cut. And here's a little tip for you. This bracket right here, where these things slide through, got these little sprung clips. When you pop them through the back side, they pop out. I'll take a 14 millimeter wrench, the box end on the back side of it, force it over it, and it'll squeeze these fingers shut. Then you can go ahead and you can pull that cable out the back side of the bracket. So saved all the parking brake cables off the truck. Nothing's hacked. Bonus. And just like that, the axle's out. All I had to do was get the brake line disconnected from the hose on the frame. I cut the U-bolts that hold the plates where the shocks are bolted to. I just left those hang temporarily, and then I took out the bolts and the rear shackles to the leaf springs, and then just lowered it all down and rolled the axle out of the way. Once that was out of the way, I just went up and unbolted the shocks off the frame and got those out of the way. Not sure if I'm going to be reusing those plates because they're pretty rusty. I don't know if we'll buy some aftermarket or make some new ones, or I'll just try to clean those up and reuse them. Not sure just yet. So now at this point, these leaf springs will just get bolted back up to the shackles, and I'm going to roll the new 8.8 underneath there with the new perches just sitting on top in the correct location, nothing welded yet, and just kind of loosely bolt everything in place, and then we'll see how it sits. So here I have I guess these are the U-bolt brackets. They're the lower shock mounts. So I had to cut the shocks are pretty much rusted in there. So I got everything cleaned off them, cut the U-bolts out, cut the shocks off. So I'm going to try to reuse these. So these will be on the bottom of the axle now for the U-bolts. So we'll try to come up with something to where we can flip-flop these a different way, and hopefully we can still use the lower shock mounts on these for the truck, and then just come up with a custom length shock to work with this and get lots of nice travel out of it. So that's what we're going to try to reuse and recycle here. So we're getting real close here, putting this in. I do have the spring perches all ready to go, fitted to the axle tube. They were some 3-inch, so I had to open them up to 3 1/4 to fit the axle tubes. So we're almost there. Yeah, I don't know what I was just thinking there for a second. These are not going on the bottom, and we're not reusing these shock mounts because these are going on top. The U-bolts are going to be facing up. So yeah, really had a brain fart moment there. So I just lopped off the shock mount off this, cut this one off. So these will be sitting on top of the spring, U-bolts going through them. So yeah, a little mistake there. I stand corrected. And here it is, the axle is in. U-bolts just snugged up. Got the original plates up there. Just chopped off that shock mount tab. I got the pinion angle just kind of guesstimated for now. Dry shaft is in. And I'm just going to figure out this brake line here real quick. Got the ABS sensor plugged in. So I will be putting the wheels on it here real shortly. And we're going to see where it sits. So, getting closer. Alright, here we go. Axle is in. Got the pinion angle set close. Like I said, I got the ABS sensor plugged in. I got the vent tube hooked up, routed. Brake line is hooked up. I believe I have enough room or enough hose at full droop. I just bent the bracket down a little bit more. This truck already had the hard line replaced at one time. Someone put a nice little extra loop-de-loop up there, so I was able to pull some down. I don't have the truck off the jack stands yet, but the axle is pushed up a little bit here, so I do have a lot of hose there, so it's looking pretty good. So here it is. I'm going to throw the wheels on it now and see where we're sitting at ride height. Well, here it is, sitting on its own weight. She's wide. We got them wheel spacers in there to adapt the bolt pattern, so I'm gonna have to do something with that. I think it's a little bit on the wide side, but there it is. Just have to measure for shocks. We're gonna turn it around tomorrow, and we're gonna start on the front and get all this done. Not a bad afternoon though. She's big. I don't know if it's gonna come out of the garage.